Hey everyone, welcome to Art School Live. It is Monday, October. I don't even know. Oh, it's not even October yet. See, this is where my mind has been. I have been so far advanced in everything that I'm doing that I'm already living in October, and I think it's 2026 half the time. So welcome. We're still in September 2025. So glad you're here for Art School Live today. I have a very exciting guest that I recently learned about on Instagram through her husband, actually. And I'm really excited to welcome 𝗕𝗚 to the show today. Welcome, Anne.
Aw, thanks, Kari.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. Remind me, where are you calling in from?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Okay, you are California. Awesome.
Yes.
What are
yes.
you going to be sharing with us today? Because I'm really excited about it.
Today I'll be sharing about how to simplify and subtract and why that's valuable when you get back outside to paint.
Yes.
In the overwhelm of plein air. So we'll be subtracting and using a limited palette, working small.
This would have been a great show to have last week before I went plein air painting on Friday and just did a terrible job. So I am really looking forward to this.
Yes, it's all about the strategy and the prep.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get this show started so we can get Anne painting.
It's Art School Live with 𝗕𝗏. Now, here's your host, 𝗕𝗏.
Kari Stober. Welcome to Art School Live. Eric is at Fall Color Week right now, so I get the pleasure of hosting you this week, and I am super excited for today's guest. 𝗕𝗚 is going to show us how to simplify when we go outside to plein air paint. And I am really looking forward to this because I am not a great plein air painter. And I am also terrible at simplifying. I get so lost in the details. So I'm really looking forward to this. And she's also going to be painting in acrylic gouache, which I have not played around with it a little bit. I usually go gouache or recently acrylic. So I'm excited to marry those two together. So let's go ahead and get this show started. Anne is going to take over and show us what to do.
Okay, let's do this. There. Okay, first I want to just explain the context for why it's helpful to work in small sketches. So when I go outside, I'm bringing my gouache often with me and conceiving of just that time as an opportunity to be looking at shapes and then like taking notes for colors. And then I never exactly think about finishing something outside unless I'm in my garden where I've got a couple of sessions, but these become the basis for bigger paintings that I do in the studio.
What size is that?
That's the context. And okay, and now getting to the shape part and simplifying, because it's a different way of starting to conceive of reducing what you're looking at. So it's a big shift in perception to start subtracting. So what I often teach my students is that, we're going to squint and just get to the big shapes. And so for the past couple of months, I've been just nerding out on the tech, developing some digital tools to help people better see shapes. And this is one of them. So I'm going to demonstrate here with our reference photo how we're first beginning to see in shapes. So in this tool, I'll use a Sharpie so that you can see it better. But we're essentially sort of squinting and following the contour of the shape areas. And I'm going to just fill this in here. And then by doing that, it becomes less about rendering something and more about relating. So hopefully you can see, I'll try to put my hand a little more out and just following the edge of things. And when we start working in paint, this becomes really important information to be using when we're subtracting. And it's really a good practice in the sense that when you get outside, there's so many things to juggle with the light moving that the better you're able to just reduce, the better you're winning at art. Okay, so that's that. And then I would just, and we're going to sort of simplify as we get into paint here. Okay, so these are big shapes that we've got going on. And what I like about this is that, and then we've got one more shadow area here. Okay, so what we've got going on is the ability to really leverage the darks to accentuate the lights. And so this is, you're not going to encounter something like this when you're outside painting, but the more you can be thinking in this way of grouping your darks together, the better success you have when you get outside. So, okay, so let's now see. Oh, and this is what that would look like, sort of as a black and white value sketch. So that's, you know, that's what we're going for in paint. So, okay, so let me just scooch this over here, and hopefully that's right this way. Everything's a little backwards. There we go. Okay, so the way I work is I really try to work big shape to small shape and big area to small area. So how that's going to translate
when you do that, does that kind of go with so a lot of people will approach it as work dark to light. So does that still apply here, or you really just, it doesn't matter what the value is, you just work big to small?
Yeah, you know, I generally do work dark to light, and then I work, you know, big dark shape to the next dark shape. So sometimes I'll work in an inverted way, but I think it's helpful to just really work dark to light, and then you can just put your, you know, then you've kind of built the cake, as it were, and then you're just spending most of the time building these relationships in the shadow areas so that the light areas can sing. And so as I was practicing this yesterday, by working in a limited palette, we're going to be able to sort of gray things out. I've got alizarin, I've got ochre, I've got ultramarine blue, and I've got black. So oftentimes with acrylic gouache, you almost need two layers to make it work. So I'm putting in kind of a purpley shadow area. I'm going to just knock down the color a little bit. Okay. And the way I'm often working is just putting in those big areas, and we're just covering the canvas, and then we're going to go back in and carve into things. So it looks always a bit clumsy to start, and then you're not really painting until the canvas is covered, and then you can start relating. Okay, so we've got that area. Let me just scooch this over on my screen so I'm seeing the reference. There we go. Okay. And then there's some gradations. So in that same puddle of color, I'm just making some adjustments to it. And so it's interesting because thinking in shapes, like the more you start doing it, the more that light becomes your subject. Does that make sense? That it's less about you know, sort of, it's more about those big areas and how they relate to one another. And that becomes just so much fun. So much fun. And gouache is super forgiving. So if I need to make adjustments to this, which I will, it's really easy to go back in with more opaque color.
So is this layer that you're using right now, is it pretty, I mean, is it fairly thin, or is it still a little
Yeah, it's fairly thin. It's fairly thin. So, and it's not super washy because I just don't, I like I just like having a sense of where things are going. I'm not the person that loves washy. I'm sure there's a reason for that. Sometimes if there's more time, I love to wash in a color outside, a really punctuated chromatic color to work against. But in this instance where we don't have a ton of time, I just don't want to, you know, if you're waiting for something to dry, you just don't know where it lands. Sometimes that's the one thing about gouache or acrylic is it can dry down a little darker. It can dry down a little grayer. So there's an element of surprise to it. So this is how I would start an oil painting also, just, you know, having worked, see how we're just here, we've gone from here to essentially the same version of that with a little bit of variation. And the light on the table is going to be like one step up from that dark. So I'm going to just mix some blue into there, gray it out. Okay. And acrylic gouache is so wonderful because it gives you the opacity, it dries, it's really easy to clean up. You don't have to wear special clothes to be painting, all those practical things.
Yeah. So even with acrylic gouache, it doesn't stay permanent like acrylic would?
It does. It does.
You
It's
like
really,
if you get it on there?
yeah, you can get it off pretty easily. But I guess the truth is I'm sort of a neat painter to begin with.
See, I'm so messy.
Are you?
Yeah. I like to think that I'm not, but I've ruined enough clothes that I now accept the fact that I am a messy painter and I just need to wear paint clothes.
Oh gosh. Yes, I do definitely wear gloves when I'm painting in oils. That's for sure.
So you do oil, gouache, acrylic gouache. Do you do pastel or watercolor?
No. I think I like, for me, I love the chroma of being, of working, you know, working from life out in the garden and just those big, bold washes.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. So those are my preferred mediums. Let me make this a little lighter. Okay, so do you see we're just working one shape to the next shape. And there's a little bit of variation between the shapes. And let's see. Okay, and now probably the next thing I would work on is just massing in some of those big middle tones there and some of the flowers. And then we can work on top of it. It's a little more chromatic than that. So another thing I like about working small is it just gives you the practice of practicing and looking and working out ideas. And then it's sort of like, just, I don't know, maybe it's the equivalent of sort of training like an athlete. And so when you get outdoors, you're really much better situated to respond. It requires a fair amount of spontaneity to be outdoors and just pulling on all the prep work that you've done in advance of getting out there.
Right. I've actually heard that from several artists, especially who work in gouache. Like some of them, sometimes they do like credit card size small to try to focus on the bigger shapes and not get lost in details.
Interesting. I think I'm always just thinking about painting. It's just always, I'm always thinking about how I'll be, what I want to paint. If I've got something in mind in my garden, which is incredibly challenging to paint in a garden, I will always work it out on either in gouache or on my iPad or something, so that when I get out there, I've got my plan, I've got a strategy. Okay, got that a bit. Okay, let's see here.
I like seeing your approach because I would have just jumped right in with all the color.
Well, I purposefully made this like a limited palette because I thought that could be of benefit to people also, to see that, when you strip the color of everything and you get to a more basic palette, you're really, it's also increasing the vocabulary of what you're expressing using less. So it really is seeing in shapes and then kind of working in this way is really a less is more sort of situation. Okay, so I'm going to need to go back into these areas. But what I like to do is just lay it down, carve back in. And so we're just sort of averaging things here, and that'll give us a means of building some of the lighter layers on top once that dries. The disadvantage, or not disadvantage, the challenge of working with limited palette is you're not going to get those big punchy colors, like, mixing a green from a limited palette gets you kind of to a muted place
Right.
at best. But I think that's a good way to, I don't know, it's a good skill to build also. So
I think that's really good because coming from a pastel background, mixing colors has been really hard for me. And so trying to work more on, okay, these are the essential colors I need. What colors can I get from this group? And then I have a notebook and I just do swatches every now and again, especially when I'm having, painting block. I just do swatches to kind of figure out what kind of colors I can do.
Oh, that's wonderful. And do you work pastel outside?
I did on Friday. I haven't been painting a lot in plein air. I want to get more into it. I tried it with gouache and it was a terrible experience because I was so new at gouache and didn't have the right surface. So everything just like sucked it. Especially in being in Colorado where it's super dry, everything dries so fast.
Oh, that's the thing. You have to really be I always say, like, such a tactician, that especially working in gouache and acrylic outside, there is no room for it helps. I think it helps personally for me to know the subject of what I'm working on well enough that I can plan out something in advance and then get out there really prepared to paint, really prepared with my colors mixed, especially when it's in acrylic, and that's my, and mentally have planned out what I think my painting is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's a big thing. I have a dear friend who is such a masterful painter outdoors, in acrylic, 𝗦𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗺𝗽, and
Yeah, yeah.
wow, it's amazing to see how she's, out responding to what she's seeing and almost extracting from life and pulling the painting out of just she's just pulling she's just gathering all the information from being outdoors, and way more spontaneous, I think. It's really, she's just amazing. Okay, so all right, so we're getting the canvas covered here. All right.
When you do these kind of sketches, what size are you typically working on? Like for your plein air studies that you showed at the beginning?
Oh yeah, those I'll do like 8 by 10. You know, it's interesting because I very rarely work in acrylic gouache bigger than 8 by 10. And I know it's possible to work bigger than that in gouache, but it feels like there's somehow a threshold for me that I feel like, oh, I don't work bigger than that in the gouache, because maybe it's an issue really of finding a way to get the paint to spread. And when it gets bigger, it becomes an issue of also having bigger brushes, bigger, you know, you're taking everything up a level.
Yeah, the biggest one I did was a 16 by 20 of a buffalo for my husband. And
Oh, wow.
I did the under layers in gouache, and then or with a brush rather, and then I did the overlayers with a palette knife, which was really fun.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. And so you did the overlayers, so some of the underlayers were showing through, and
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
imagining. Oh, that's great. It's so God, it's such a fun medium to use, and it's really, I during the pandemic I began using it out in my garden a lot, and then I would just really I would be just putting down washes, and to your point, it matters the surface that you're using. So I would use kind of a slick surface, and the result of that is like it gets a little gummy to kind of build layers. I don't know how to express that, but gets a little bit like, as you build layers on a thick surface, it gets dulled almost. So I find that sometimes the more forgiving surface can be just working on watercolor boards, or you know, that can be an easier surface, or in acrylic, working on canvas can be much more forgiving. And then the brushes are also really important, because sometimes, like, I find that I'm using often just, you know, synthetic brushes that are just sometimes even student grade, and those are wonderful. They keep their shape. And then, you know, some of the more expensive.
No, actually, you're the second person I've heard say that who was it? 𝗬𝗎𝗪𝗺𝗀 was doing a gouache demo, and she was like, yeah, this is just a cheap brush. Like, you don't need to have like the super, super nice thing. Do you tend to use synthetic? Are those typically more watercolor leaning or acrylic leaning?
So it's interesting. Those are, I guess they're watercolor leaning. And yes, they're watercolor leaning. And then, as you get outside, that's where in acrylic big, that's where I think that it's helpful. Sometimes I'll even use like a big chip brush to start from the hardware store and treat it as a disposable brush.
Yeah. I love those. I use those for my watercolor underpaintings.
Oh, that's great. Aren't they just so fun how they keep
Yes.
they retain their shape? And
Carl is saying you're using the pointy watercolor brush throughout the painting. Is there a time where you have to use a flat brush to fill in a shape?
yeah, that's such a good question. I think if I were working bigger, Carla, I'd probably, I might use a flat brush. I think just because I'm working small today, I thought it would be helpful to have more of a point to work with. But I'm not really a flat brush girl. I'm more of a filbert person, generally, in oil paint and in acrylic, all of it. I tend to like a filbert and a round. But I'll definitely work, kind of bigger brush to smaller brush for sure. And the round is helpful in this instance because as stuff starts drying, we'll just be able to go back in and find some of the edges of things. So, okay, so let's just put down. So now we've kind of got we've got our sketch a bit blocked in. Let's see here. Covered the canvas. Dun, dun, dun. Let's put this here. Okay. And I think I love in painting, just those areas where a halftone meets a shadow, where there can be chroma at the margins of things. So I love that, to me, sometimes art is what you're leaving out, what you're choosing to leave out, and then what you add back in. So
yeah,
that's fun.
Your artistic license.
Yes. And I was just realizing recently that most people believe that an artistic license expires, but you can always get back to it. Never expires. Never expires. And
Laura is asking, how long does acrylic gouache stay wet and workable on your palette?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yesterday I was just practicing this to see, just to make sure it was readable on camera and all of that. And I think this will stay, if I were spraying this, which I'm not going to do because I don't want everything to get diluted, but definitely an hour, if not more. If you're outside, obviously you got to have good shade game, because that's where you have to go in really prepared for it, depending on the weather, for that to dry out quickly. So you have to have a great umbrella or be under a great tree or both, and then really have a water bottle, spray bottle. Yeah.
Watching you paint this, I realize I use way too much paint.
Really? Yeah, I put extra paint out just in case. So, all right. So let's go back. I don't want to get those little ghosty areas. Okay, this is going to take a second to dry, and then I can put more on there. Okay, so I'm doing pretty good time-wise, I think, here.
Yeah, we've got about 20-25 minutes.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. No rush. Okay, so let's see. All right, now the next thing I would do is just start working some of those areas that are disappearing into the shadows. So one thing I love helping my students with is just like this image, this is a lot of drama, and a lot of people shy away from drama. And drama is so much fun. Just that sense of a really exaggerated pattern of light and dark is so much fun to leverage. Just to be able to sort of know that you can build this vocabulary of okay, I know how dark something could go in order to support the lights, and then it just gives you kind of, to work this way, maybe permission to really think a little bit bolder about colors. And I'm often, this is really unorthodox, but what I do outside and what I teach my students often is my unorthodox 75-25 rule, which is that when I'm considering a subject, I'm squinting and thinking, all right, is this 75% dark, 25% light, or sort of in the ballpark of that? Or is this more like values in a mid-range? And so, or is this, is it 75% sky? Is it 75%, land? And so I'm thinking about all of those things when I'm figuring out what I want to paint.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my kind of simple rule. And then from my days working on movies, the one thing to avoid is, like, you want to avoid things that are too white at the edge of your painting. And you want to avoid things like right at the center of your painting. So you want things to be off the center.
Right.
A bit. Okay. So now, all right, let's just move this there. Okay. Make some of that disappear. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, just while this area dries, I'm going to go back in and just darken the darks, just for the sake of owning those bold, dark shadows back there. And, oh, sorry, my hand is sort of in the way. I'll try and paint this way a little bit more so it's more legible. Okay, and this should dry down a little bit, not so dark. So,
Anne, could you just shift your painting up a little bit? Your hand is kind of covering.
Yes. So let's see, maybe this way, that way. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. Okay, how's that?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, and while the center part dries, in the same way that we, in the no-tan, we're sort of looking at those edges of things. I'm doing the same process when it comes to carving back in to some of those areas. Just carve back in. And carve back in. Okay. Where is everyone joining from today, Kari?
Oh, we have them from all over Canada. We've got Minnesota here, all over the US. Usually we have somebody from the UK. I've seen Sweden in here. Yeah, they're
Oh, that's so nice. How's everybody doing today out there in the world?
They're doing good. It's Susan's birthday, so happy
Oh,
birthday, Susan.
happy birthday, Susan.
We've got, let's see who else we've got in here. Joe, Loretta, Karen, Nancy. We've got so many of our usual people in here.
Oh, that's so nice. Thanks for being here today, everybody. Okay. All right. And then let's do this. Okay. So, all right. Now, what I could see is, okay, hopefully our flowers are dry enough that we can just go in there and land some of the lights. Okay. Let's see. So, I'm going to just mix some lighter lights. Okay, so if I'm squinting, those are going to be some of my lighter lights. That might be just a bit exaggerated, but I can probably read well here. Let's see. Okay, and let me just put okay, so the idea is that you're kind of just very judiciously breaking up those areas that we just created. I'm going to just put these things there. It's sort of, I'm not a chess player, but it is like a chess game. So you sort of say, okay, what's my lightest light going to be? My most chromatic thing is going to be in here. And I'm going to just exaggerate this for the sake of it being on YouTube here. All right. Okay, and then we've got here. Okay, and I have that a bit too dramatic, a shift in value, but let's see if we can adjust that. Right.
Look at that. That just popped right out there.
Well, see, yes. And then now I'm missing a few, like, sort of midtones in here. But let's see if we can just do that.
We've got about 10 more minutes.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I painted it yesterday so that if I, depending on how far this one gets, I can always show what it looked like when we were offline. So let's see. Okay, now Okay, so now I need to adjust the table a little bit. I'm going to just put one line there. So sometimes what I'll do when I know I've got a couple days where I have those glorious days where I don't have anything to do for anybody except for I live for those days. But what I do when I know I have that is I will set up a still life on my back porch um, and then paint from that. And it allows me to sort of stand inside my house in the shade, and then it allows me to work big. And a lot of those paintings, I just had a museum show, and I had a lot of those paintings in there, which was just
Oh, nice.
amazing. It's just a kind of a way to create plein air without leaving home. Okay, let me just fix that. Okay. Right. Okay. And then probably, let's see. Let me just clean that up there. Okay. And
When you do your plein air studies outside in gouache and acrylic, how long do you usually spend on those?
gosh, probably an hour and a half-ish. And then if I'm working in my garden, it'll really be, it could be longer because I'm not in any rush. But the light generally has shifted, as it gets beyond 2 hours.
Mhm.
So for the small studies outside, I'll definitely work on those, you know, hour and a half. Honestly, even bigger, sometimes painting outside, in the garden, it takes, like, to just scale up, it doesn't necessarily take more time per session. It's just, takes more days, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because some of them are like, some of them can be 50 by 60 outside, which is um, pretty crazy, but really fun. And Okay, and then I probably would just go in and start just reinforcing some of these darks here. Oops, sorry about that. Let's see.
Okay, we are at the 5-minute mark.
Okay, 5-minute mark.
It went by too fast.
I know. I really had, this was just delightful to get to spend time together here.
Yeah, it's been super fun.
I'm with you. I can't believe it's almost October. What the heck? Okay, I would, let's see, do some of this. So I hope that's making sense, that sometimes this is a lot of this process is just about putting it all down and then working back in with the darks.
Yeah. I have to agree. Someone said in the chat that it's so peaceful to watch you paint.
Oh, that's so kind. You know, that's honestly why I paint, to tell you the truth. It's everything, you know, to just really have a calm haven. And it just makes me so happy to help, like, people get back to that. I think art is always there for us, you know, just no matter if you haven't painted since you were little, or if you've just put art on hold for a while, it's always there. Got some funky values going on here, but we'll try and correct that. I've been using my sketch from yesterday as the reference rather than the actual photos. But I think we're doing okay. It's working out. So let's see here.
Well, we're going to put Anne's website in the chat. Be sure to check her out. And also check her out on Instagram. She's got a lot of great stuff there too. She's got classes she teaches, all kinds of things on her website. So be sure to check that out.
Oh.
Anne, thank you so much for being here today and doing this. This was such a great demo.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. I hope that made sense.
It did. I'm really excited to kind of put this into practice.
Oh, that's so good. Yes, simple shapes. Simple shapes are just everything.
No, this was great. Like I said, be sure to check her out there. She's also going to be coming back later in a couple of months to talk with us about digital. And we have Digital Painting Live coming up next June. I just asked her to join us for that. So we're going to get to learn a lot from Anne. Thank you, Anne.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to everybody that joined.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Don't forget that we have our 97 tips video that we, it's free, artsecrets.com/ASL. Be sure to check that out. There's lots of incredible information there. And if you haven't signed up for Plein Air Live yet, you still have time. It's November 6th through 8th. We're going to have that slide there. We have a wonderful faculty. I'm really excited for this group of people. There's so many great artists on this faculty this year. That's pleinairlive.com, 3 days to fast track your journey to outdoor painting. And I love our live events because you get to have such a smorgasbord buffet of artists to learn from, and then find out who fits your style and go take classes with them, workshops with them, all that kind of stuff. So this is a really great opportunity to get introduced to Plein Air Live. And if you actually are interested in plein air painting, we have a webinar coming up on Wednesday. Cindy Barron, I'm going to be hosting her, and we're going to talk about transforming your plein air paintings into stunning studio works and being able to, like Anne was talking about, take your studio or your plein air studies rather, and then take them into the studio for bigger paintings. So be sure to check that out, streamlineartevents.com/5tips. That's Wednesday. It's going to be actually right after Art School Live. So be sure to check that out. And if you want to treat yourself to a week of painting with friends and escape from the winter weather, be sure to check out Winter Art Escape. That is coming up in February 5th through the 13th. And I think we have a video for that, don't we?
Every February, it happens. Gray skies, the freezing winds, blowing snow, the endless shoveling, power outages, and closed airports. Winter doesn't just chill your bones, it drains your inspiration. But what if instead of scraping ice, you were setting up your easel under the warm sun? What if instead of gray, you were surrounded by color? This February, join us for Eric Rhodes' second Winter Art Escapes Artist Retreat for a week of painting in the sunshine of Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and Savannah, Georgia. Paint the breathtaking coastal marshes, the roaring ocean, historic Victorian homes and town squares, trees dripping with Spanish moss and golden sunsets. With every detail handled, your room, your meals, your painting agenda, all you have to do is show up, paint, and connect. You deserve a solid week of painting and making friends. Spots are limited to just 100 artists. They're filling fast. Don't spend another February stuck indoors. Escape winter. Recharge. Paint with us at Winter Art Escape.
Well, that looks like it's going to be fun. I hope you guys get a chance to go do that. Painting with Eric and getting to go to a lot of those retreats like Fall Color Week and Adirondack, it's just really fun. It's a nice little, just a little vacation, a little camp, as Eric likes to say. We just got some pictures sent to us today from Sarah, who is there working with Eric this week. So it's always nice to get to see those faces of people we know and love and get to have fun painting with. I want to thank you again to Anne. And then don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We're here every weekday at 12 noon Eastern time. And tomorrow, I hope you'll come back and join me. I'm going to have 𝗠𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀 on, and I've had such a fun time learning with him recently. He's such a great instructor. So be sure to come back tomorrow, and I will see you guys then.